Hey, welcome. I hope you're having a great day. Right here, we have the MPC Live Mark II. Right next to the MPC Live Mark II, we have the SP404 Mark II, and we also have Modbap right here. This video is not really going to be about Modbap or the SP404. It's mainly going to be about the MPC and being able to route your audio into outboard gear and bringing it back into your MPC. Now, as an example, I do have these two units that we're going to be using, but just keep in mind that you can do this with any outboard piece of gear you may have, whether it's guitar pedals, an EQ, a compressor. This gets really fun because it just gives you flexibility to tap into new sounds, and you're not locked in just to what the MPC is giving you, and that's it. No, you can use anything at your fingertips that you want to route audio into. Now, if you have an MPC-1, you could still do this with your MPC-1. You're just going to need to have a class-compliant interface with your MPC-1. The MPC-1 only gives you two outputs, which you're going to be using to monitor your music, but the MPC Live Mark II gives you up to six, if I'm not mistaken, is 6 different outputs and just 2 inputs. So I'm actually looking into buying a class-compliant interface so I can have more inputs and have different pieces routed at the same time. Right here, I have a beat that I was working on. Right here at track 1, I have my sample. Track 2 is my drums. Track 3 is my bass. What I'm going to do, I'm going to send out just my sample into the 404 Mark II. You guys could send out your sample, bass, whatever you guys want to send out. But in this video, I'm only going to send out my sample right now. We'll probably call up on a different beat and use the Modbap for drums or something like that. But right now, let's hit play. Let's listen to what we have right now. Okay, so that's the beat that I have. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sending my sample into the SP404. There's 2 ways that I can do this. One way I can do this is going to be by opening up this little eyeball icon and going into your inputs and outputs. Right here, the input is receiving signal from the sample program, and it's coming out of outputs 1 and 2, which everything that you have in your MPC is going to be going out of your main outputs, which is outputs 1 and 2. That's how we listen to everything. Now, what happens if we switch those outputs out of 1 and 2? If I get out of 1 and 2 and I go out to outputs 3 and 4, now that I have that selected, if I hit play, I'm no longer going to hear that sample anymore because that sample is now coming out of outputs 3 and 4 from my MPC. So now we just hear bass and drums. The sample's still being played back, but it's not audible because it's coming out of 3 and 4, which is going through these 2 cables. Now these 2 cables, I'm coming out of 3 and 4, going into the SP404 Mark II inputs, and then coming out of the SP404 outputs into the inputs of the MPC, which is sample input 1 and 2. Now, if I want to listen back to the SP404 and we want to hear the sample now, my favorite way to do it is by being right here in this MIDI track. Go to your audio tracks. In this audio tracks, matter of fact, I has audio 1. I'm going to name it SP. I don't know, you guys can name it whatever you want. And right here is receiving signal. The input of this audio track is inputs 1 and 2, which inputs 1 and 2 is, your sample inputs right here on your MPC. Now that we have that activated, if I go down right here where it says off, this is going to be your monitor. If you want to turn on your monitor, you want to monitor, hit in or auto. I'm going to go to in. And now if I hit play, I'm out to make sure I got external source engaged on my SP. Now we should be able to hear the sample coming back to us. Well, now we hear the sample. The cool thing is that we're no longer hearing the sample coming up out of the MPC. Now we're listening to the sample being processed through the SP404. That is actually really powerful because what we can do now is So now I'm using the power of the SP404 with not my whole entire mix, but certain elements within this beat, which is really fun because I'm telling you, to spice up your beats. Sometimes you get stuck in a 2-bar or 4-bar loop, but once you connect these pieces of outboard gear and start messing with your audio, it gets really interesting, and you just come up with more ideas to, you know, maybe add an intro to this beat. Now that right there is really powerful. I really enjoy having this flexibility, being able to route my signal. You guys will notice that there's no delay. Well, as a matter of fact, there probably is a delay, but nothing that we'll notice or that kicks us out of the groove. It works fine. It sounds amazing. Where you start noticing a delay, now there is a video that I saw with Ricky. You guys want to check that out. I'll leave a link down in the description. He goes over, there's actually a pretty big delay once we start engaging sound effects, kind of like a cassette simulator. There actually is a pretty noticeable delay, which this is not going to be able to work for me. If I hit play, that I have cassette simulator engaged, that's pretty offbeat. Now, a fix for cassette simulator in the SP404 is I'm actually using now that I've been using the, what is it, Air Flavor Pro. This is actually a plugin, and that's been very powerful. I'm okay with not having the cassette simulator being able to route it like this because Air Flavor Pro has been sounding just as good, if not even better. I actually been enjoying that, so that's been okay with me. I'm mainly using the 404 for the glitch effects. There's so many different effects that you could still use. Now, this is one way of routing signal to outboard gear, but let's actually call up a different beat. Let's use Modbap right here. I haven't done a side-by-side comparison, but I feel with Modbap, every time I use Modbap to run any audio into this unit, I did not notice any delay. This is actually also, it will give you different effects, but I never really noticed a big delay right here versus the SP404. So let's actually hook this up and see how this one sounds. And now let's bring in Modbap. This one actually has been pretty cool because if you have like modular synthesizers, this actually is very powerful. You could hook up and it will give you some pretty cool effects. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on. Same concept. I'm coming out of outputs 3 into Performer, going back into the MPC inputs 1. Created an audio track just so I can monitor what we're doing right here. Now, right here with Performer, this thing's pretty interesting because you have this color option. You guys probably are not going to be able to see it from the camera angle that I have. I'll go ahead and solo the sample right here so you guys can just listen to the sample. Hit play. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Running your signal into outboard gear will allow you to add certain textures that only these pieces of outboard gear will offer. If I go ahead and turn on the color settings in Performer, you'll listen to the texture that it gives to the overall sound of that sample. They got different sounds. Ooh, this one sounds nice. It's like a saturation signal, like a vinyl sound. Oh. And now you also have all your effects, your glitch effects, your delay, your reverb, your tape stop. You got your reverb. You got your delay. And then I can go ahead and drop in the beat. Yeah. Now, right here, again, I'm getting these different sounds with the color box right here. This right here is just like noise that actually sounds really good. And you could dial in how much of that noise you want, how much you don't want. I actually like this right here. So this right here to me is very powerful. Just the fact that I'm able to treat this box, this MPC unit right here, it almost feels like I'm working in a professional workflow DAW where you could run your inputs, outputs. It even has sends. It's pretty wild because I do come from that background of running, using Pro Tools, using your sends to go into different pieces of outboard gear. Like that's mixing very professional, and you're using some high-end equipment if that's what you want to get into later on. But that is very powerful. It's not about what DAW you're using. It's about the signal. It's about audio, what's going in and out. It doesn't matter if you're using an MPC because that will determine the sound of this audio. That's why, to me, I much prefer to have these options. And that's why this is so powerful to me, because they give us these options. It's now like, hey, you do whatever you want with that. If you want to go into a Fairchild compressor, go ahead and do so. Like you could be mixing in an MPC using like a Fairchild compressor or a pair of distressors with your drums, and like just being, what did you mix that in? I mixed it in an MPC. Like that's wild to me. So now I hope you guys get the idea here. And if you're just watching this and you're like, man, I have no idea. I don't have any outboard gear. I just picked up an MPC. I'm barely figuring this thing out. Trust me, do not feel overwhelmed with all this information, because right now all you got to focus on is creating beats, getting used to this workflow with the MPC. But I promise you, once you get a hang of the MPC workflow, you're going to want to experiment with different pieces of outboard gear. And when that time does come for you, you're going to have that flexibility already built into your MPC. That's why I highly recommend these MPCs, because of those flexibility options that they give you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you guys are watching this video and you got some pieces of outboard gear that you would like to recommend me or us right here in the channel, please let me know down in the comments. I'm more than happy to nerd out with you and just kind of have recommendations to look into, because there's so many different pedals, guitar pedals, effects. Like this is just two pieces that I'm using, but this world right here is endless. There's so many different options, which makes it very fun. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys on our next video. Peace.